Hello there. In a pivotal moment for Lebanon, the recent visits by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and French President Emmanuel Macron underscore the international community's unwavering support for the nation's recovery. Guterres' solidarity visit highlights the UN's commitment to Lebanon's stability, while Macron's engagement underscores France's dedication to promoting sovereignty and economic reforms. These diplomatic efforts signal a renewed global focus on Lebanon's path forward, aimed at strengthening its political and economic resilience. Welcome to Think Tank.
The agreement that was established will be respected. I'm totally convinced that the Israeli forces will leave Lebanon as foreseen, and that the Lebanese armed forces, with the support of UNIFIL, will assume full control of the area south of the Litani River. And I do not see any reason for this not to happen. And the best guarantee is that I'm entirely convinced that the whole of the international community would not forgive any violation of these agreements. Everybody wants peace in Lebanon, and nobody would accept the war to start today in Lebanon.
Carmen, Al Jazeera.
Carmen Jukhadar, Al Jazeera. So I have two questions. The first one, did you ever receive any information or have you been informed from the Israelis that the ceasefire will happen on the 26th at 4 a.m. They will withdraw fully from the south of Lebanon? Did they inform you officially about that? The second question is related to the UNRWA. You know, after the Israeli legislations and decisions related to this organization, what will be the fate of this organization and how it will impact all the Palestinians benefiting from this, the services of this organization? Thank you.
First of all, I have not received directly any information about Israel, but Israel has signed agreements, and that agreements are clear commitments that must be respected. Second, UNRWA will, in all circumstances, continue to operate in Lebanon, in Jordan, and in Syria. And it is not yet entirely clear what is the interpretation of the legislation that was adopted. For the moment, UNRWA is still operating in Gaza and in the West Bank, and we do not intend to stop our operations unless they are stopped by Israel.
Ahmed.
أحمد سنجاب قناة القاهرة الإخبارية. السؤال الأول متعلق
The first question is related to the strength of the United Nations in Lebanon. Are the UN personnel are going to be increased during the upcoming period to maintain stability and security during the ceasefire? This is the first part. The second part is related to the Gaza Strip. If there is a certain mechanism for the United Nations to enter the humanitarian aid once the ceasefire is implemented, is there a special mechanism for coordination in this regard?
Two questions. The first one is related to UNIFIL. Will there be any increase in the troops number in order to safeguard the security and safety of Lebanon and ensure that the ceasefire is respected?
There is no intention to increase the number of troops. There is yes an intention to increase the capabilities of the force. The problem is not the number of soldiers, the problem is the kind of equipment that is essential from the point of view of the monitoring that UNIFIL must do. So What is planned is an increase of capabilities and also an adaptation of the action of UNIFIL to make it even more effective in the exercise of its mandate.
The second question is about Gaza Strip. Is there any mechanism to ensure that the humanitarian assistance will be delivered once the ceasefire is agreed upon?
You mean?
Will there be any mechanism to ensure that the humanitarian aid will be allowed into Gaza?
Into Gaza?
Yeah, Gaza.
The agreement is clear. There won't be any impediments by Israel for humanitarian aid to enter in Gaza. That doesn't mean that it is easy, the distribution of humanitarian aid in Gaza. We have gangs looting systematically the convoys. We have other obstacles that have to do with the total degradation of Gaza and its infrastructure. We have a limited number of trucks at the present moment in Gaza, so a lot of actions are necessary in order to make the distribution fully effective, distribution by the UN, distribution by its partners, distribution by the private sector, and distribution by other initiatives. It is clear that there is an obligation by Israel of not creating any obstacles. It is clear that the situation in Gaza is still extremely complex and a lot of difficulties still remain for an effective distribution.
Thank you. Mohammed Bouri.
That was a live broadcast of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' press conference in Beirut, talking about the difficulty of getting humanitarian aid into Gaza, also saying that UNRWA is still operating in Gaza and the West Bank, and he says we do not expect that to change unless stopped by Israel. He also said that no one would accept the war to start again. That was Antonio Guterres speaking in Beirut. Now, go back to Lebanon, and Al-Sharq Al-Awsat has reported that during his visit to UNIFIL headquarters in southern Lebanon, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres praised peacekeepers for their critical role in maintaining regional stability. He also revealed the discovery of over 100 weapons caches in southern Lebanon and emphasized the importance of Security Council Resolution 1701, stressing that only Lebanese forces and UNIFIL should operate south of the Litani River. Guterres condemned Israeli military operations in Lebanon as violations of international law, calling for their immediate cessation and Israel's withdrawal from Lebanese territories to uphold Lebanon's sovereignty. He emphasized UNIFIL's critical role in maintaining peace along the Blue Line, despite significant challenges. Following his meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in Beirut, Guterres planned discussions with Lebanese leaders to address national priorities and strengthen international support. The Times of Israel has said that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres pledged support for Lebanon's swift recovery, envisioning its resurgence as a regional hub. Speaking in Beirut after meeting newly elected President Joseph Aoun, Guterres emphasized the importance of strengthening Lebanese institutions as a new government is being formed following 26 months of political deadlock. He emphasized the importance of deploying the Lebanese army nationwide, including areas awaiting Israeli troop withdrawal under the US brokered ceasefire. The agreement also calls for Hezbollah's withdrawal from border regions, limiting armed presence to Lebanese forces and UN peacekeepers. The ceasefire seeks to end the Israel-Hezbollah conflict, which has claimed more than 4,000 lives, marking a pivotal step toward Lebanon's reconstruction and stability. Now, joining us now on Q News to provide more analysis about the international support for Lebanon and its current situation. Joining us from Beirut is Dr. Ahmed Yunus, an academic researcher and political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us here. So, how does the Guterres statement on solidarity and his visit reshape Lebanon's image on the international stage? It must help a lot.
Good evening to you and your audience. The visit of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to Lebanon holds significant implication for restoring Lebanon's position on the international stage. His statements following meetings with Lebanese officials reflected the international community's perspective on the new phase in Lebanon and highlighted the readiness of global partners to support the Lebanese government in addressing its challenges. So during his meetings with the first meet was with the President On, he emphasized the importance of Lebanon reclaiming its role as the center of the Middle East, as he said. In his discussion also with the Speaker of Parliament, Nabi Berri, he stressed the necessity of Israeli forces withdrawing from all Lebanese territories, allowing the Lebanese army to take responsibility for securing the borders and maintaining peace. Additionally, after meeting with the Prime Minister, Nawaf Salam, Guterres expressed the United Nations commitment to supporting the government's upcoming programs. He emphasized mobilizing the international communities to strengthen the Lebanese army capabilities and facilitate reconstructions efforts and advance Lebanon towards progress and prosperity.
And now we're also joined in our discussion by Abdullah Neema, who is a strategic political analyst. Welcome to our discussion. Can the UN's renewed, this is to you, Mr. Neema, can the UN's renewed commitment drive tangible reforms in Lebanon's political and economic system?
Good evening to you and your viewers. Of course, the UN will be able to carry out reforms in Lebanon. And today, the Secretary General 15 minutes ago held a press conference concluding his visit to Beirut, in which he stressed that the UN is committed to the Israeli withdrawal from Lebanese territories in the 27th of the current month. He talked about that the UN commitment to providing all necessary aid to Lebanon to deploy the Lebanese armed forces once again, as the Lebanese armed forces will be the only forces holding weapons in Lebanon. He commended the armed forces and their sacrifices being deployed in the regions where Israel is withdrawing. He also stated during his visit his promise to President Joseph Aoun and to the Prime Minister that the United Nations will exert all efforts possible to reform the Lebanese economy and help Lebanon carry out the necessary recovery.
And Dr. Yunus, how important, we saw Guterres, of course, meeting with the new president. We saw those pictures. How important is the election of President Aoun when it comes to Lebanon's international relations?
The election of President Joseph Aoun as the new president of the Lebanese Republic carries significant positive implications for Lebanon's international relations. The strong external support for his election, whether at the Arab, regional, or international level, underscores the importance of Lebanon's stability and its role on the global stage. So this was evident and clear in the immediate official visits following his election. For example,
I'm gonna come back to you. I think we just lost you for a second, but I'm sure we'll get you back. And both of you, if you could stay with us, because we're just going to take a short break to watch a report on these ongoing developments as Lebanon enters a new political phase and global powers intensify their support to navigate the nation's pressing challenges. And here's our report.
Lebanon finds itself at a pivotal juncture with the election of President Joseph Aoun. As the international community grapples with the evolving political landscape in Lebanon, the role of external actors such as the United Nations and France might be crucial in shaping the nation's future. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' recent solidarity visit to Lebanon underscored the international community's commitment to Lebanon's stability. Upon arrival, Guterres met with President Aoun, marking an important diplomatic step. The purpose of the visit was twofold: to congratulate the newly elected president and to engage with Lebanese leadership to assess the socio-political challenges the country faces. This visit is seen as pivotal in the context of Lebanon's international standing, offering a message of renewed support while simultaneously urging accountability from Lebanon's leadership. The international community's support for Lebanon can be categorized into humanitarian aid, economic assistance, and political guidance. With the country facing an acute economic crisis, international financial aid and reforms are seen as essential to stabilizing Lebanon. The UN, along with the World Bank and the European Union, has advocated for stringent reforms to curb corruption and bolster institutional integrity. The international backing will likely hinge on Lebanon's ability to implement these changes under the new leadership. Macron's visit to Lebanon, which coincides with Guterres' trip, signals a strong French interest in Lebanon's future. Macron's commitment to Lebanon's sovereignty and stability mirrors the UN's objectives, and his presence reinforces the idea that Lebanon must remain a priority on the global diplomatic agenda. Lebanon's path forward will be defined by its international relations. Both Guterres and Macron's visits emphasized the need for a multifaceted approach to Lebanon's recovery, one that combines diplomatic engagement, financial support, and pressure for reform. As Lebanon navigates this new phase, the international community's involvement will remain a cornerstone of its future.
We receive a lot of
Our report there. We'll go back to our discussion. Mr. Neymar, coming to you, there was talk in our report there of reform. The UN and EU has called for anti-corruption measures. Will they succeed under the current new leadership?
Of course, in this new era, the era of President Joseph Aoun, who is supported by the EU and the US, and they are providing support to him during the past period. They send funds to support the Lebanese military. He managed to administer these funds in the desired areas. Also, the Prime Minister, who is assigned to form the new government, Nawaf Salam, and the ex-president, the ex-head of the International Court of Justice, they are able to apply and put the right arrangements underway to carry out the desired reform. This new government will be formed of specialists, not politicians. Everyone will be specialized to manage their respective ministries, which will drive success in Lebanon. Everything is heading this way right now towards success of the reform process in Lebanon to get Lebanon out of the setback that it's witnessing right now, with the Secretary General visiting Lebanon, and there will be a visit by the Lebanese president to Europe, to Brussels, to sign into new agreements. We also saw the support of President Emmanuel Macron and his discussions, as he stated that France will help Lebanon with all means possible, and they will establish a fund for the support of Lebanon. Also, Qatar and Saudi Arabia promised Lebanon with assistance. So I think Lebanon now is mobilizing support, and it is supported by international and Arab states. The international community now is required to carry out its responsibility to help Lebanon gain its sovereignty once more, restoring the Lebanese sovereignty and integrity, which will give credibility to the Israeli withdrawal from Lebanese territory. Lebanon now is being saved by the international community, pressure being applied on Israel to help the Lebanese state gain control once again. So eventually, for the Iran project, it is now completely over. The international community is mobilizing support to help Lebanon. And I think, in my opinion, this is the rebirth of Lebanon, and it is forming new relations with the entire world. Since 1943, Lebanon has not received such attention. And
I'm just going to interrupt you a second, Nick. So I wanted to bring Dr. Qnews back in. Mr. Neema there talks of the rebirth of Lebanon. Just briefly, Dr. Qnews, could you tell us how important is Macron's visit when it comes to the rebirth of Lebanon, especially given France's influence in Lebanon's recovery?
President Macron's visit is highly important. It reflects France's long-standing commitment to supporting Lebanon during its most critical moments. Macron has proposed several key initiatives. First of all, about the conference, he wants to organize an international conference in Paris to mobilize resources for rebuilding Lebanon and supporting the Lebanese armed force. Also about, he talked about the border issues. He emphasized the importance of withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanese territories and the returning to the Blue Line. So he committed to mobilize international support to achieve this. According to the legal reforms, Macron also responded to Prime Minister Salam's request about French assistance in modernizing Lebanon's legal framework, aligning it with advanced international standards to enhance governance and transparency.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much to you, Dr. Ahmed Yunus, academic researcher and political analyst, and Abdullah Neema as well, a strategic political analyst. Both of you gentlemen joining us today. Thank you very much for that. And that brings us to the end of Think Tank today. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.